All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Conversation. Today, I am joined with my friends Erin and Caleb Russell, and we are here to talk about infertility, IVF, and the journey to aiming for pregnancy positive. So, hi, both, and thanks for joining me today.
Hey,
Hello,
Shay.
thanks for having us, Shay.
Always. Okay, so to get us started off, I wanted to ask when you guys knew that you both wanted to be parents.
Do you want to go first?
I'll let you take it away.
Okay. When we both knew we wanted to be parents, well, I had Easton before I met Caleb, so I was already jumped into having a kid right from the beginning. So I think we both, once we met, um, it's kind of like, well, if this isn't what you want, then we already have one kid. But for the both of us, when we knew we were ready, like after we got married and stuff, I was like right away. I just felt a longing in my heart for the last 6 years to have another baby. And I love being a mom and I want to have all the babies. So that was it for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think pretty early on.
Mhm.
I mean, I know I kind of got a bonus when I married Erin to be a dad right away.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that was something that we discussed and talked about early on that we wanted to kind of just try almost immediately, I think.
Mhm. Yeah.
Definitely.
So
Just for anyone watching, I just want to give people the caveat that I'm turning and looking to my side a lot, and that's because I have two screens and I'm reading questions. So for anyone watching this video, I'm not just like off in la la land. All right, so I'm curious, like when you guys had envisioned like what getting pregnant would look like for you and like birthing and your early parenting journey, um what did you envision that looking like? And you can take that question into terms of like even what you thought about what
Mhm.
it would look like even prior to Easton or prior to your marriage or even prior to meeting each other, but like just in general.
Well, okay. Um, Prior to having Easton, I mean, obviously I was um 22 or 3, I think, when I had Easton. So I wasn't like the idea of having kids was not even in my mind at the time. I just happened to get pregnant. Um, but at that time it was really scary. And when I went through the whole birthing process by myself, it was terrifying because I was by myself. I obviously had my family and our friends who, supported me, but there was like a moment in the hospital after I had Easton on like the third day I was there, that everybody had to go back to work and it was just me. And it was kind of like sunk in, like, holy cow,
Yeah.
this is it. Like, this is my, I was over the moon, of course, to have him. So I would say from the beginning, came as a surprise. And then for Caleb and I, when we met and decided we wanted to have another baby, obviously from the beginning, we thought it should be fairly easy. I mean, I never tried to get pregnant. I just got pregnant. So to me, the idea of infertility wasn't even a thought in my mind. I was just like, okay, well, when we're ready, we'll start trying. And that was pretty much right after we got married. And we tried for quite some time before we decided to pursue an infertility clinic.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, I always kind of knew I wanted to be a dad, from an early age. So I just kind of, plain and simple, just thought, oh, okay, you meet a girl, you get married, then you just start having babies, like if you decide you want to have a baby, then you're just going to have a baby. It's never really, I don't know. I don't think infertility is something that is spoken about enough. You don't realize a lot of people go through it until you start going through it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think we met quite a few kind of couples along the way that
Yeah.
we found out had, either struggled or gone through some sort of fertility treatment or something like that. But
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
um,
Well, actually, my next question was going to be like,
Oh,
did you ever imagine that? And I'm sure we'll touch on some points a couple times here throughout,
okay.
but like that was my next question, was if you ever imagined that you would struggle with infertility, and you both just kind of like answered that already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah, I
think
would.
that is probably common.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this interview is not about me at all, but I can say, like, from a young age, as someone who wants children, that I never even gave it a second thought. Like, I was
Yeah.
in the same mindset as you, right, Caleb, of like,
Yeah.
well, when you're ready to have babies, you just do it.
Yeah. You
They'll
just
just
have
be
them.
there.
Yeah.
Turns out.
Yeah.
So kind of touching on that too, when you guys were growing up, did you ever hear much about infertility, or really have like an understanding around what infertility was?
For me, I would say partially. I mean, I understood that my mom struggled for a very long time to get pregnant with my sister and I, and then again with my brother. But to me, it never really sunk in what that meant, and like even what that would mean to go through as like a mom. Um, but no, I mean, otherwise, other than that, like obviously, like in school, like, these are subjects that you never talk about, you never learn about it. You don't really know about it till either you or someone really close to you is going through it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I never really even heard the word, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I knew, women had miscarriages and stuff like that. I knew that was a thing, but the whole like just to try and it just never work. Yeah, that was just something that you just didn't really hear about, I guess, at all.
Yeah, totally true. So do you guys feel like infertility is sort of like taboo, or maybe like, do you feel like it's talked about enough in society?
No,
No,
not
I
at
don't
all.
think so. I think it's becoming
More and
more of
more.
a
Yeah.
subject that's talked about.
Or I don't, maybe that's more because we're in the circles that do
True.
talk about it and we're open to talking about it. So maybe that's why. I had to go out and like search for infertility groups like on Instagram or Facebook, people who have gone through it or did IUIs or IVF or whatever. Like there are specific groups out there, that do talk about it and do try to get the word out there, but I didn't know about it till I was going through it.
Right. Well, and I think even in going through it, we've met, numerous of just our friends that we've had,
Yeah.
that, oh, hey, we're struggling too. It's been a couple years, and I think we've really learned to kind of change our language on that kind of stuff. Cause I think,
Mhm.
a lot of times if somebody's been married for a couple years, you're like, oh, well, when are you going to have kids, sort of thing. And, a lot of times it's not necessarily a choice. So
Totally.
Yeah.
Do you guys feel that, like, aside from talking about it, do you have a sense that infertility in general is more common this day and age than it was, like, say, even, I mean, maybe 50 years ago?
Mhm.
yeah,
I think it is.
100%.
I mean, and I'm sure environmentally things are like things we wear on our bodies, things we eat, all kinds of things that we're doing are contributing to more and more, I'm sure, cases of infertility. But yeah, I mean,
It seems to be the more and more people you talk to about it, it seems to be a lot more common than you would really think.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I did my original, when I did my original post on finally telling, like, I mean, I know you guys, like our friends, my family, they didn't know right away that we waited a while to tell everybody. But when I did my original post of like sharing it on Facebook, I had so many people reach out to me, like way more than I could have anticipated, and said, thank you so much for sharing this. Like I felt like I was alone. And even those people, not that they have to share their own story, like they can in their own time, but have never shared anything. And so part of me is like, well, I mean, I know it's a hard thing to go through regardless, but I finally felt like, I don't know, I wouldn't say okay with it once I talked about it, because it never really was okay.
Yeah.
It still felt really yucky and frustrating and upsetting, but talking to my family, talking to my friends definitely brought out a better side of me through it, I would say.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So-
And I mean, it
You
shows,
just kind of realize you're not the only person.
right. And, you know, having people respond that way, I think speaks to the fact that it's probably not as widely talked about, or like you're saying, maybe it's starting to gain a little bit more traction, but up until this point hasn't been
Yeah.
something that has been very widely spoken about. So how long have you two been aiming towards getting pregnant? How long has it been? When did you start?
6 years. So we met when Easton was six weeks old.
Yeah.
Which was in December of 2013. And then we were engaged in April, married in August. So we weren't even together a year before we decided we knew we'd want to start trying. So I think we didn't like start right away after we got married, but shortly after. So it's been 6 years that we've been trying to get pregnant.
Yeah, you know, at first it wasn't like we were like trying, but we never like used any like protection or anything like that to not get pregnant. So we kind of just figured like, well, one of these times it's gonna happen, you know, and then like 1 year would go by and you're like, okay, well this year, yeah, it's gotta happen, you know, and
Yeah. So
so
that's actually a perfect segue to my next question, which is like, at what point did you kind of start to feel the concern around like, okay, maybe there's some further underlying issues? Like, when did you start to really feel like, okay, it's been a substantial enough time, like that maybe I was hoping like something would have like caught by now to, okay, like, maybe it's
I think
a year.
Was it a year?
Well, I
a
went
little over a
to
year.
After a year of trying, I went to my OB's office and just told her, and she was like, normally we try to get you, you know, started on some Clomid or whatever to try to help you ovulate and control that and try to help you get pregnant. But since it's been a year and you already have one kid, I'm going to go ahead and recommend you to go to an infertility clinic right away. So it was like a year, like right around the year mark of us trying. I think right around the year mark of us being married.
Yeah, a year and a half maybe.
We decided to go and pursue that, and we did do some infertility treatments through that first infertility clinic after we got recommended over there.
Okay. Yeah, I was kind of also curious when you guys started, like, you know, I would imagine when those concerns arose that you would probably start doing like more extensive research, right? And then going to the doctor for advice, support, resources, etc. What were some immediate questions that you both had when you initially started talking to doctors? I mean, you mentioned just a couple, but do you remember like any specific questions you had off the bat?
Off the bat, not really, other than just like, obviously my biggest question has always been why. Right. And that has never gone away. Like,
yeah, because
we've never gotten a true diagnosis. It's always been unexplained infertility. So I think our biggest question was always, well, why?
What are we going? Yeah, you'd go in for the tests and they basically say like Erin's stuff checks out, you know, for the most part. Caleb, your stuff checks out, you know, for the most part. There might be like little things here and there that might be working a little bit in your disadvantage, to your disadvantage. But overall, it was kind of just like, well, you're two fairly healthy, you know, like at that time, mid 20-year-olds,
25-year-olds.
Yeah. That, you know, it should be working. There's really no reason it shouldn't be working. So I think, yeah, that was definitely the biggest question. Like,
why?
Yeah, why?
Yeah, that makes total sense. Like, especially if you're hearing that your health is where it should be and there's no immediate, like, obvious answers. I can imagine that being tough to hear.
Definitely.
So describe to me when you first started realizing you were having some challenges, describe to me what that felt like and how that feeling progressed, sort of the more time that went on.
Okay. Well, I don't think I was as frustrated right at the beginning, or upset. I just was like, well, let's find out what's going on. There's got to be
Mhm.
some answers. There's got to be somebody who knows something that we don't know. And obviously, we're very big in our faith. So we kind of just tried to lean into that and trust that God had a plan for us, whether or not we knew what our timing was going to be. So at the beginning, I wasn't frustrated. I was like, okay, it's been a year. It's not that long. People try
Mhm.
for longer than that. So at first I wasn't, upset. But as time went on, I was mad a lot. I was sad a lot. Sorry if I cry.
Hey,
um,
it's an emotional topic. I would be surprised if it was emotional, so don't feel bad.
but yeah, I was just frustrated all the time. I was frustrated, you know, like when people close to me would get pregnant. I was frustrated when I'd see people I don't even know on Facebook getting pregnant. I was
Yeah.
frustrated when I saw people walking down the street who were pregnant. Like it was like a constant reminder of what I was lacking. And yet we had no reason to know like why. I think that was where we struggled, or where I struggled with the most, was my faith and the constant question of asking why. And we'd have people say, I'm all in God's timing, just trust in God's timing. And I was like, we always said, like, that's so easy to say unless you're the one going through it. Like, we want to trust that. We want to trust that there's a plan for us out there. But at the same time, like, how? Like, why
Yeah, it
isn't
was
this
extremely
working? And
tough.
everyone around us is getting pregnant and having babies and then getting pregnant again and having more babies. And it's like, I got to like a very definitely like dark place. And I would say that was probably like a couple years ago, like when we moved away to Oklahoma for a couple years, and just by our own choice. But I would say during that time was when I like hit my lowest point, because Caleb was working so much, and I really like just struggled with processing what we were doing and how long was this really going to take. And I think
Yeah.
for me too, the hardest part was, sorry, knowing how bad Easton wanted it. Our son, Easton, wanted to be a big brother more than anything for forever. So the constant reminder of letting him down felt really heavy for me. That was like, I guess that's how I felt. But
Yeah.
how about you?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was probably a little bit different. I was just trying to be, as supportive as I could, because obviously it it takes two to make a baby. But it's not me personally that has to, actually go through the process of getting pregnant and having said baby. So I kind of was more on the outside looking in from that perspective. But I think I agree with Erin. After a year, it was kind of like, okay, well, we can figure this out. We can get through this. We're gonna figure out what's going on. But then 2 years and 3 years would go by, and it was kind of just like,
And people would ask you, when are you guys having another one? When are you guys having a baby? And we're like,
yeah,
we would always be like, we're trying, we're
yeah,
working on
we're
it.
working on it. And people kind of jokingly be like, "Oh yeah, you just got to keep practicing." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I know how to have sex, thanks." So, but I mean, yeah, I think as time went on, it just was a little bit tougher and tougher to
Mhm.
to
And I think we
process that.
handled it differently for a very long time. We never really talked about it. Like, why I would, but he would never tell me how he really felt. I think he didn't want to add to how stressed out I already was about it. I don't think he just didn't want to add to
Yeah,
that. So then our marriage kind of like had a like, took a toll when the both of us are equally upset and emotional and frustrated about this thing that we have no control over.
right.
And yeah, it was
Yeah.
hard.
No, it was a good call out too that you mentioned. Like, I think from some people's perspective, you primarily think about how that weighs on you personally in terms of like the physical experience and wanting to physically be pregnant, but maybe we don't always consider how it really does have a full rounded effect. Like you mentioned, like when you were going through it, you were feeling, guilty because of Easton wanting that too. And you were feeling like you were, maybe at times questioning your faith a little bit because you were just feeling so overwhelmed and frustrated. And yeah, it's really kind of incredible how it affects so many facets of your life. That would be very challenging to go through. And you guys, you also brought up a couple points, which I don't want to go down either of these rabbit holes just because we could talk forever, I feel like. But, the point of like Caleb bringing up the fact that he felt it was a little bit different from his perspective because he wasn't um, going to be the body physically carrying the child. And there's a whole stigma around female identifying bodies and like what that is like to be able to carry a child and all of the feelings that come with that. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. I know that
Mhm.
it's definitely vulnerable to talk about, but I think it's important. And hopefully there's a lot of people, I'm sure, who will feel some sort of like connectedness, knowing that they're not the only ones who go through those feelings.
Yeah.
So what has been kind of, take me through what your strategy has been throughout your pregnancy journey, like trying to get pregnant, like from the beginning to end. And when I say strategy, I mean like just walk me through just briefly, some of the milestone moments you had from like the realization of, okay, we have some challenges to overcome, to strategizing about what routes you were going to take to try and increase or improve your fertility, etc.
Yeah, we've done a lot from the
Yeah.
very get-go. We started off after seeing my OB and getting recommended to the fertility clinic. We did 3 rounds of IUI, which is artificial insemination. And all 3 of those failed. So from that, we decided, I was on so many hormones from that.
Mhm.
So we decided to take a break from that and try, as much as we could naturally. So I was taking, taking my temperature, tracking it, trying to track my ovulation cycle more that way, taking ovulation tests. And then we did that for a while before my OB eventually said, do you want to try Clomid? Because we kind of skipped that whole step. And so we jumped back into that part.
Yeah.
Did that for 3 months with no luck. And then we took a longer break, I would say, of like unnatural hormones, like, that kind of stuff. And so from there,
Because I think, that after that, you were like worn out to the max.
and then we had a
and
friend in Oklahoma who recommended me to try different teas and like taking mock root powder and doing like, taking all these kinds of vitamins and getting our bodies in like as healthy shape as we could to try to do this all on our own, and still nothing all the way up.
Yeah, you had like a printout calendar
Yeah.
where you would, track your ovulation,
My temperature, track my ovulation, do
And
like
we would
ovulation
kinda-
sticks.
we would go through spurts where we would try really hard and then get frustrated
Mm-hmm.
and kind of be like, okay, let's just take it easy for a while. Obviously,
We still
hopefully tried,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like crazy
We
tracking
weren't
or
like
anything.
tracking it. Yeah. Because I think also we were getting the advice of, well, when you stop trying, it'll work. Or if you just relax, it'll work.
Relax, yeah.
And obviously that was never the case, which ultimately led up to us deciding to pursue IVF.
Yeah. I definitely want to get into IVF stuff too.
Mhm.
Before we kind of shift gears into talking a little bit more about that specifically, could you maybe share like 1 or 2 moments that you remember being kind of like your low points, and then maybe 2 on the flip side of that, like 1 or 2 moments where you felt really hopeful during the process. And obviously going through those challenges, I understand that it can obviously all be looked at as like, you know, a low point because it's something you're aiming for. But yeah, maybe just share a little bit about a couple of those moments if you have any top of mind.
Yeah. Do you have anything you want to say? I have some, but
You can go ahead.
okay.
Yeah.
I would say for one of my lowest points, and I've talked to my sister about this. She already knows, like when she told me she was pregnant with her first child, I think that's when I hit like a real rock bottom, because I was like, um, happy for her, of course, but hard to see her, who's my twin, getting exactly what I like wanted to do, and
Right.
kind of moving forward without, like, almost felt like without me, but it wasn't, it was her own journey and whatever. So I would say that would probably be one of my lower points, as well as there was a time when where we used to go to church here. How many of those women were pregnant at the same time? I
There
think
was like, because there was a group that was kind of like a 5 or 6 couples that was kind of 25 to 35, kind of in our age group. And I think,
they
yeah,
all
like
got
every one of them.
pregnant at the same time, like not purposefully, just coincidentally. And then, people are making jokes like, don't drink the water at church, and because clearly something's going around. And I think that also like just really hurt, because I was like, wait, well, what am I doing wrong? What are they doing right? Why not us?
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of low points I hit, though, I would say, along the way. And it wouldn't have to just be someone really close to me getting pregnant. But it was always, that was the stem of it, was anybody around me who got pregnant. But my high points, I would say, oh, I had something in mind and now I'm totally spacing. I would say, like, Caleb and I leaning into our faith together more. That would be one of my higher points, because I would say that when, like, maybe a year before we decide, or like shortly before we decided to go through with IVF, we moved in with his parents. And obviously, living with other people was hard for us to do, but I think we got to our best point during that, because we finally were like talking about it and like, what do you want to do? How do you want to move forward? And I think that finally brought my spirits up, like felt like, okay, we're actually going to take steps towards pursuing something that could work.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess at the same time, my high points would also be my sister had 2 kids and during this time, which at the first felt like a stab in my heart, but it wasn't. I mean, obviously initially it was hard because it was exactly what I wanted to be doing. But I have a niece and nephew that I gained, and that would be a really high point for me too. Do you have something you would add?
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably just like went through the low points with you. I don't know that I had any like a specific moment, but if you were in a rough spot, then I was in a rough spot too. And I definitely had like a couple moments along the way, like if we were getting good advice from somebody and we were kind of really gung-ho on trying these new vitamins or this new way of tracking things. There was kind of so many new,
it was a lot
like
of up and down.
Like ovulation tracking tools that seemed like they were like coming out there for a while, which you tried. So there was quite a few moments, I guess, for me along the way that I was like super hopeful about it. Like, okay, this is actually going to work this month. Like, so yeah, that's what I would say.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And, Erin, it's funny you say that, because I remember when I heard the news of Kari's pregnancy, and I was obviously thrilled for her, but I did think of you, thought of
Thank
both
you.
of you, and I was like, oh man. And so, it's more so like, I think there's a potential that people look at situations like that and they're like, wait, why is this, something that's hard for you, like be happy for these other people. And it's like, you don't understand. It's not that you're feeling sad in place of joy. You're feeling joy and excitedness for this person, and you're feeling sadness and longing within yourself because, like you said, it's just this reminder that's around you. And especially when it's in your interpersonal relationships and world, it just
Yeah.
hits that much closer to home. So I think that those are totally understandable feelings to have. And I can't imagine that that was easy to maneuver through. But yeah, anyway, thanks for sharing that, because I know it's
Yeah.
hard to talk through your more like vulnerable points. Um, so I do kind of want to shift into the IVF stuff a little bit now. So can you just high level explain what IVF is to those people who maybe don't have any idea?
Yeah. Do you want to do it? Go ahead.
Sure. So yeah, IVF. So basically, they give you a lot of, or Erin, a lot of hormones and stuff to make her body produce a lot more eggs than it normally would on a given cycle. Typically, a woman would produce 1 egg per cycle. But they ramped hers up and she was able to produce 18 eggs. That's very different for
We were
each,
blessed to have
18,
definitely.
each woman. Some produce more, can produce more than that, and then some produce a lot less than that. So yeah, I would say 18 for us was a huge blessing. So then she went through a retrieval process. So they go in and surgically remove all of those eggs. Then I go ahead and give my contribution to the matter. And they essentially just take my sperm and her eggs, and they
try to make as many embryos.
They actually physically like insert the sperm into the eggs.
Well,
now
some do.
Some do, some don't. Some would just put the eggs and sperm in a test tube together and hope they can do their own thing. But our IVF clinic, put them together.
Give them a little push. Yeah.
So after that, you wait 1 day and you find out how many actually fertilized and created an embryo.
Yeah. That's pretty much the process of
pretty
IVF.
much the process. Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you guys decide that you wanted to move forward with IVF? And also, this was not one of my questions, and if you're uncomfortable answering this, feel free to pass. But maybe for people who are curious about it, if you're comfortable talking about at least maybe like the price range of what IVF costs for those who might be curious as well.
Definitely. So was your first question, when did we decide to do it?
Yes.
Okay. When we were building our house, like a year ago, we knew we would close off one of the rooms upstairs and eventually it would be a nursery. I think the idea was hopefully that by the time we moved in, we would be pregnant, but it wasn't, we were not. So a few months into living here, I would say it was about July of 2019, 2020, 2020. Yeah. Caleb, obviously COVID hit, and that was like kind of a crazy time for everyone. So he took a real scale back on his hours. So he was home a lot more. So we had the opportunity to talk about it more and decide, how do we want to move forward? And so that's when we decided to pursue IVF. So we called up, we had a friend who used a specific clinic here, which is Colorado Center for Reproductive Medicine. And we decided to move forward with them.
Yeah. I think it was something that we'd always kind of talked about, like maybe eventually we would do.
But the cost was always what held us back. Sorry.
Yeah. But I think we finally were kind of like, let's do this. There's no time like
yeah. Like saying no time like the present, right? For cost, oh my gosh, I think we went into it anticipating, knowing that it was going to be expensive. And we knew also we weren't going to have the money up front to cover the cost. It wound up, because we did, it was just general stuff for the most part. They have like a big, it falls all under like one bubble. And then the more stuff you do, obviously it can get more expensive. The price without like medication. So depending on person to person, it's going to cost less. It could cost more. I didn't need quite as much medication. I still had a lot, but
all in, we were
Yeah.
at like $30,000, including medication. I think the IVF process itself was like 22, I think 22 or 23. And then meds were
like close
in
to
the
$7,000 range. Yeah.
Yeah. So a pretty price tag. And I'm sure that other folks going through that, I'm sure that that's a hurdle for people to either accept or get over as well, because it's not by any means a modest amount.
No.
I mean, unless you're like Jeff Bezos or something, but most
Yeah.
So what would you say, like, going through the IVF process, what would you say have been your least favorite parts about going through IVF?
The shot, the medicine, how I felt in giving myself shots, I would say would be obviously we knew there was going to be, well, we'd hoped, for a great outcome at the end. That's all you could do. And we just, tried to lean into that. But at the same time, it was just really hard to constantly be giving myself shots. My hormones were like all through the roof.
They weren't. You were amazing.
Oh, I was sure I was calm all the time. But yeah, the hardest part was probably giving myself the shots and all the meds I was taking, for sure.
Was it in the like just giving them to yourself, or was it more so like how you felt after taking the shots?
I would say both.
Okay.
At first I was like really scared to do it. And so, I just kind of, there was like, I think the second or third time I had to give myself a shot in my stomach. I gave myself shots 2-3 times a day for a solid month, and then continuing on after that. And, at first I was like, oh, I can do this. Like, it's not that bad. And then
I think it was like the third or fourth day.
I broke down, like called my parents, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't do this every day. I can't give myself a shot. Like, what if this doesn't work? Will it, like I'm going to, whatever. So I was really at a low point doing that. I would say was just getting past the mental part of grabbing your skin and shoving a needle into it.
Yeah.
That would be the hardest thing.
Well, kudos to you for getting.
Thanks.
Caleb, I realized that, Erin obviously had to go through probably significantly more physical pieces throughout that. But what would you say your low points were through, or not the low points, but your least favorite parts going through IVF, if you had any?
I think just watching her struggle with like the medicine and just wishing I could do more, and I guess just trying to be as supportive as I could while not actually being the one that had to shove a needle into myself. I got to stab her a couple times here and there, but yeah, so
that was probably your high point.
That was my high point. Just kidding. No, I think, just seeing you struggle and just trying to, be supportive and figure out a way. I mean, because, and I think Erin kind of touched on it, we just kind of look towards the hopeful outcome, and, that's what you had to kind of just focus on.
For sure. So then what would you say was some of your favorite parts about going through the IVF process?
I would say when we got our calls from the doctor. Letting us know. I mean, it was a hard point, like especially up to my egg retrieval. My stomach was so bloated because normally, obviously, when you have your cycle every month, you release one egg, and I had 18 fully sized grown eggs, or whatever, in my follicles or whatever. And so my uterus was huge and everything felt bloated and so sore and so sensitive. but obviously that was hard, but getting to coming out of surgery from my retrieval and hearing our numbers, and especially because in the room you're in, it's just a curtain between you and all the other women who are going through this, same process. And there was people on all around us whose numbers were lower and who were higher. And I kept thinking, gosh, like how blessed are we to have gotten the number we got? Because there was, we got 18, but the girl next to us had 3. So I was like, it's like a hard thing to process, but obviously it was really cool. I mean, that was probably one of the better points, was getting our numbers calls back from our doctor.
Because we figured out that, and then a week later we would get another call to let us know how many of the embryos had made it. And what it was kind of like every couple of weeks after that we would get another call.
So I have to ask what your results were. I already people watching this video may not.
Well, I am pregnant. We did get that amazing call, which was so great. Which is a really cool memory too, because normally you find out like just from being on a pregnancy test, but we got the call, which was such a cool to be together and find out at the exact same time was really cool. I
think the most stressed out week of my life leading up to that point.
Yeah, because
9 days, I
9
guess.
days after after our 18 eggs, or 18 eggs they retrieved from me, we had 11 that made it that had fertilized. 11 of those fertilized. And then from there, how many?
I think 5.
Well, no, 8. I think 8 made it to blastocyst stage, which was like when it forms into an embryo or whatever, I think. And then we had genetic screening done. Oh, wait, no, you're right. I'm sorry. 5. We only had 5 at that point. And then we had genetic screening done and found out we have 3 healthy embryos, 2 boys and 1 girl. And so we transferred one of them. We did not pick. We just said whichever the healthiest embryo was, and we're having a boy. We're really excited.
I'm so stoked for both of you.
Thank you.
I remember, I mean, it wasn't all that long ago really, but I just remember you guys going through it, and I had a good feeling about it. I just did. So, it's primarily thanks to my good juju, basically.
Yeah. I mean, you always were very I think there was a point after our transfer, we all hopped on a Zoom call, and I was like really nervous, and you were like, don't do that. Like, only think positive. And that was always really helpful. So.
No, you're sweet. I was obviously joking, of course, but I am thrilled for you both. What did it feel like, that moment when they told you congratulations on the phone?
Pure bliss.
Yeah, tons of
emotions. Yeah, to have finally gone for 6 years without seeing a positive pregnancy test.
I think it's
having
just
that moment
even more surreal.
Yeah, it was,
especially to have a 7-year-old that he gets to go through it all too. And
I
think it's like the best thing ever to.
That's right. Easton was there for the whole thing, and through all the shots, he would always come up and hug me and kiss my stomach and tell me I could do it. And he was always very uplifting. And then he was home the day we got the call, and so he was right there to be excited right along with us. So that was even cooler. Yeah.
Wow. I'm truly thrilled for you guys.
Thank you.
Knowing your journey, personally, I just couldn't be more excited for you guys. How far along are you now?
14 weeks. I'll be 15 weeks on Friday.
Yeah.
It was really rough in the beginning. Very, a lot of nausea, and that was in part to, obviously, my meds continued after I got pregnant.
Okay.
So that was, I think, one of the harder parts was continuing to take meds when you shots and stuff when you're already feeling like literal crap. So, but yeah, it was still worth it though, obviously.
Yeah, I was gonna say, would you do IVF again?
We will. We obviously plan to eventually transfer both of the other embryos we have. So we do plan, I mean, as hard as it was, and I said this to Caleb, like throughout the process, like, this sucks, like, giving yourself the shots, feeling the nausea, doing everything, was really hard. But I was like, but I have to, and at first I was like, I don't know if I can do it again, but obviously I can. I
Yeah.
did it. I made it through. I'm bruised,
Yeah.
still bruised to prove it. And from all the shots and stuff, but
Yeah.
it was definitely worth it.
Good.
Yeah.
What would you say, like, what do you wish you guys would have known prior to going through this whole experience, not just with IVF, but the entire aiming for pregnancy positive journey?
I don't know. Really, it's, if there's
It's tough.
anything I could say like specifically, I wish I would have, I don't know. I was gonna say I wish I would have like not been so down on myself and like put so much blame on me in my body, but had I not, I I think it was good that I experienced what I did. It makes me feel even more grateful that I got pregnant. And I'm, like Caleb said early on, we're way more cautious and careful and aware of what we say or do or post, around other people. So I don't know if there's anything like specific.
No, that makes sense. And I mean, what would you guys say was like the most rewarding part, or some of the most rewarding parts of your journey aside from the obvious?
Yeah.
I think when we finally like committed to doing the IVF and like and getting like the financing approved and all that kind of stuff, like, and knowing that like we were gonna go forward with this. And
yeah, and I would also say like the friendships we've made along the way. I mean, at one point we did try to pursue adoption, and through that we met lots of amazing people. But there was one woman who spoke to us or like, I think maybe she was just a speaker to the whole crowd of people that were at this conference, and she said that adoption wasn't going to fill the void of having your own child. So obviously, I think from there we really were like, okay, well, we still want to pursue adoption at some point, but we needed to exhaust all of our options first.
You said the woman at the adoption agency told you that?
Well, like, it was an adoption conference, so there was a ton of people speaking, who have, who were adopted themselves, who gave up babies for adoption, who have adopted several children, and it was great advice. There's a lot of women who were couples who were there, not just women, but who went through infertility. A lot of the people we met went through infertility. And I think we were all at different points in our lives. And I think it was great to hear that advice that, obviously if adoption is something you want to pursue, it is on your heart. It's on your heart for a reason. And I think it led us in the right direction, to know, like, we obviously want to pursue it at some point in our lives, but we needed to, like I said, like, exhaust all of our options first.
Yeah. I think, no, I'm just kind of I guess it depends, and maybe it just needed more context around it. But I would be surprised that like someone at a adoption convention would say like, hey, this may not fill your void, or won't fill your void for having your own child, because I feel like that's such a case by case basis, and like that's not necessarily something that someone else can decide. But I guess maybe what she meant more is like, if it's important to you that your child is biologically yours, like, try and move through for like those routes. I don't know. I don't know this woman.
I
think
that was kind of her point.
Both doing like IVF route or an adoption
and it wasn't
route.
It wasn't like a specific adoption company. It was called the Promise Summit. it was a Christian like adoption conference. And so a bunch of people came and you just got, it was, I don't know, just a
It
really,
was just really good because you got to hear from all sides of the
Mhm.
story, and it was kind of their own personal like feeling, or
like women who gave up their babies, what they went through, and or gave up their babies for adoption or whatever, placed them for adoption, I guess would be the correct way to say that. You know, so I think it was a really cool experience, but I see what you mean. Like, I think it could come across differently to different people, but for us, it kind of hit home. And I
Yeah.
think we needed to hear that.
yeah.
Yeah, because it kind of helped guide you.
Mhm.
What do you guys feel like we can do as a society collectively to spread more awareness and understanding about infertility and the challenges that can come about with trying to get pregnant?
Oh man. I don't know, just talking about it more. You know,
That kind of stems from people that are going through it need to also, I think, speak.
but
I think,
in their own time.
yeah, it's tough. Yeah.
You know, at first, you know, it was like it started out little with like little things. Like it drove me crazy on like what's that day? April Fool's Day, who would pretend like they were pregnant. And I was always like, well, how insensitive. There's so many women. And it wasn't like I got my, like personally, it wasn't me getting my feelings hurt, but I've always thought about it from the perspective of what about other women? Like, you know, at the time I might have only been a year or two in it. And there's always women who, you know, there's women who've been in it longer than us and still haven't come out the other side.
Yeah.
But so I would say being more cautious of your audience, of who you're talking to,
Mhm.
even if you don't know who they are and what they've personally gone through, just treating it like you don't know, like you obviously just being cautious of who you talk to, what you say, how you announce certain things. I mean, I was careful, you know, I have friends who have gone through infertility and who have had miscarriages. So I did my best. I felt like I reached out personally to those people to let them know I was pregnant before I posted anything to social media. And I'm not saying you have to protect everybody's feelings. That's not any, you know, no one's job. You can't, you know, some people's feelings are going to get hurt regardless of what you do or what you say. But I would just say, like, just being cautious or aware, being more aware
Yeah,
of how you speak in front of people.
definitely.
So,
What about you,
are you,
Caleb?
Yeah, I think so. You just never know what somebody's going through or a couple's going through, and maybe they have been trying and maybe they haven't been. You just never really know. I think, yeah, just watching the language that you use, and you know, like I kind of said earlier, it's not necessarily a personal choice sometimes not to have kids, and I think that's kind of what's ingrained in our heads and what was ingrained in my head beforehand. Like,
Mhm.
hey, you're married, like what's going on, guys? You're gonna have kids, like what's the deal? But you know, a lot of times they're trying, but you know, obviously.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because like that can be a very insensitive question, right? From the viewpoint of it could be like what you guys experienced. It was probably annoying to hear that because you're like, we're trying, okay?
Yeah.
But also on the flip side of that, not everyone wants or needs to have kids. So like it's
Mhm.
probably very annoying for other people to hear that too, because people are going in with the assumption that every person wants children, which isn't the
Mhm.
case. And I think that what you guys are speaking to, just being more aware and cautious and having the understanding that we don't know everyone's stories or what goes on behind closed doors, is just a really valuable lesson to take forth moving
Yeah.
forward in general. Um, I think that's great advice. Um, so for my last question is I wanted to ask you guys, what advice would you give to someone who may be watching this video now who is struggling with infertility?
My best advice would, I don't know. I guess I would say, first of all, just to feel the feels. It's okay to like be upset and to be hurt and to feel frustrated. I think those are all very valid feelings. And I don't think it's a bad thing for anybody to, like lean into those emotions. But I also would say, to find a group, find a tribe, find other people who have gone through it, regardless if they've done IVF, if they've done IUI, if they've been in it for 1 year, 6 years, 10 years, just find people who you can lean on.
Yeah.
And for me, I met my MOPS group, which it was no intention of joining that group for infertility, but it ended up being a lot of people who really lifted me up through it and were encouraging and
Other women that have gone through.
Other women who had gone through worse than we had, and but we're right there alongside. So I would just say, find people who you feel like you can trust and you can lean on in the hard times. I still have, friends who reach out to me, who have gone through or who are going through infertility, even though they know I'm pregnant, just letting me know how frustrated they are that they're still not. And that's okay. Like, just, find people in your life who you can trust and who you can lean to, but also just to lean into those really crummy feelings sometimes. Let yourself cry in your bathroom floor for an hour.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, like, you found yourself feeling like you weren't allowed to get upset, or be mad or whatever it may be. But yeah, it's okay to be mad. Like, if you want a baby, that's what you want. And if you're not getting it, then yeah, you're not going to be super stoked about it. But yeah, I think absolutely get a group of friends, whether
about you for you.
Yeah, I think for me, same thing, a group of friends, couples, even if they haven't gone through, infertility, just people that you can lean on and talk to, and that aren't going to judge you, and just kind of sit back and listen, and, that you can share your frustrations with, or your wins with, or whatever that might be. But I think we all need just a lot more of that in our life in general. So
I agree. No, those are great sentiments, and just like human love and connectedness, it's easy to tear that apart, but it's nice to have support from other human beings.
Yeah. And whether you have it like in real life, the only other thing is just like, there's so much resources on social media now, just to find your group there too. They don't have to be people who know you personally. It could be millions miles away. So
yeah, and that'll kind of allows you to tap into a niche of whatever topic you're looking for more information or resources on, which I'm actually glad you said, because I also did not ask you this prior, but I'm hoping when we post this video that maybe Erin or Caleb, you would be open to sharing some resources, whether that be articles or maybe some support groups that you both have tapped into throughout your journey. Just anything that maybe anyone watching this video who's struggling with similar challenges could potentially use support, I think would be great.
And we're here too, if people wanted to reach out to us personally.
Yeah.
So
that's very sweet to offer. So for anyone watching, if you want to get connected to Erin or Caleb, I will tag them when I post this. And that's really sweet to offer. And thank you guys so much for joining me and sharing your story and answering some of these questions. I think they are really vital, and I hope that just people hearing your story can help them feel a little bit more comfortable being open about, any challenges that they might be going through that has to do with a similar topic or even other topics. So life is hard, and I feel like it's easier when we can relate to one another and understand that we're not alone. So thank you guys.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right.
Thanks, Shay.
Thank you.
Thanks.